He asked everybody to pass this continuing resolution. It's not something that everybody's excited about or happy about. But we have the adversaries are trying to say, oh, this isn't Trump's agenda. This was Joe Biden's agenda that Trump passed. Well, if that's the case, why did almost every single Democrat except one vote against it then? So talk to me about this continuing resolution here.
Yeah, look, I'm not a big fan of continuing resolutions for all the reasons you just stated. Plus, it's an indicator that you didn't get the job done. You didn't get your work done. But let's face it, Alec, the circumstance where we in the House passed 12 appropriations bills, that's how many there are, 12, and the Senate passes 12 appropriations bills, and we marry them together and get a signature from the president, that hasn't happened since 1996. So it's completely broken. Here's what we want to get to, which is the big game. The big game is reconciliation. This was in the way. So what we did was he said, look, these things usually suck. Can we make it at least palatable for us? And so what we did was we cut a little spending, right? Because you never cut anything in Washington, zero. We cut some spending. We froze spending for 6 months. That's another thing that never happens in Washington, D.C. And, you know, with the rate of growth in spending and inflation, holding something flat is actually a decrease in spending over time, right? So we got rid of no earmarks in this thing. And the big news is we killed the omnibus because congressional leadership still wanted to do what we call a four corners deal. Two on their side, two on our side. They get together, figure out the whole spending for the year, and you get an up or down vote on it, which is garbage. We killed that. So what this does, this is like getting a first down so that you can get into the red zone. That's what President Trump wanted. And oh, by the way, even though we had to pass this thing to get him there, in the meantime, President Trump, Elon Musk, and Russ Vought over at the Office of Management and Budget are going to cut the things out of it that we couldn't do by voting for it. So if you're saying to yourself, look, I came to Washington to lessen the impact and the size of the federal government, to lessen spending and the bankrupting of our country and our citizens, like that's what's happening here, right? You're actually getting cuts. You're actually getting less spending. So I often say, look, you can do a lot if you don't care who gets credit for it. As long as, look, if the Democrats would actually ever vote to cut spending, I would probably be with them, but they won't. But the one guy that's willing to do it is President Trump. And it's not just talk, right? Leadership always says, oh, if you just surrender today, we'll fight tomorrow. Well, Trump's not saying that. He's saying, if you vote for this now, I'll actually cut. And you know what we have to prove that he will do it? A track record of the last 50 some days, right? So let's go. Let's get to the big game.
And we have the momentum right now, too, Congressman. Plus, if you listen to some of the talking points from Democrats from years past, I know just on X, they were posting Nancy Pelosi from 2010 talking about cutting waste, fraud, and abuse out of Medicaid. And now all of a sudden, she seems to think it's a mortal sin to cut waste, fraud, and abuse. So when you listen to some of the Democrat talking points from 10, 15 years ago, they would be considered far right today because that's exactly who they used to be. And now all of a sudden, it seems like they're more than happy to say, no, we don't want Elon Musk finding out where all this money is being spent. We're more than happy pissing away the taxpayer money. And everybody, I think, on both sides of the aisle saying, yeah, you know what? Maybe we should know where our taxpayer money is going. And if it's being wasted, let's cut the waste.
Look, you're absolutely right. They used to actually be for cutting waste. At least they told people they were. They might not have done it, but they told people they were for that. Now this is what they're for. They're for anything that Trump's against. They're against anything that Trump is for. And that includes if it goes to improper payments, if it goes to funding illegals who have no right to be on these social programs, they're for that if Trump is against it. And you know what I say? Good. If that's what it takes, then go out and tell your bosses, the people that actually vote for you, the people that are citizens of this country that are voting for you and you're taking their tax money, go tell them that you're putting the people that are here illegally, they're in the front of the line. Go ahead and tell them that and see how that works out for you.
Yeah, well said, Congressman. And also, too, another thing with the Democrats used to seem to always be anti-war. Now it just seems like all they want to do is to continue to fund the war. And they're like, no, don't you dare stop that Ukraine war. But now it seems like Trump has gotten at least Zelensky and Ukraine to the table here to agree to a ceasefire for 30 days. Now waits on Putin and Russia. But to get him to that point is a win after what we saw take place in the Oval Office last week, where it looked like that was the end of all talks between them. So what's your take on the movement and the process of this Ukraine war?
Here again, just to start out, like President Trump is for peace in Europe, and apparently the Democrats are just interested in more killing and more spending your tax dollars in an endless sinkhole of this war. So look, this is the first step. You had to get Zelensky to agree to something. And I think it's a good deal, especially the mineral part of it, because like we should get something back for all the money that we spent over there funding this thing. It's their war on their soil, right? So that's that. Now I think the president can really put the hammer down on Putin. And, you know, from my standpoint, like the ask has got to be, you got to be out of Ukraine. You have no business being in there. Get out. We're stopping the war. We'll be the ones that are the, you know, the equal arbiters here. We'll bring in the UN if it makes you feel happy, or some of these other weak-kneed European organizations. We'll bring in, you know, well, they don't want to hear about NATO. So look, quite honestly, if Ukraine doesn't join NATO, I don't know what the big loss is. But the point is that I think the president can really put the pressure on Putin now and say, okay, we got an agreement on this side to stop fighting. You know, as long as they're not going forward, if Zelensky's going to step down or something, Russia, what are you going to give up? And what they should at a minimum give up is all that Ukrainian territory that they've stolen for the second time.
Yeah, well said, Congressman.
You're listening to the Alec Show. The future is family.